Ladies and gentlemen, nandito po tayo once again dito sa The Ultimate Fan Hub Podcast where it's made by the fans.
For the fans.
Of course, Jordan Summer here from Fox Sports Philippines.
And I'm Jonas Reyes from Fox Sports Philippines.
Naku, may kulang ata tayo ngayon,
Yeah,
no, Jonas, no?
Absent ngayon ng aming third co-host na si Miss Sicha Cabanlong.
Opo, get well soon po, Miss Sicha.
Yeah,
She's
hope you
from
get well.
Dugout Philippines. And kung napapansin nyo, medyo gumanda yung ambience natin and sounds. Kung yun nga, audios, no? And dahil dyan, we would like to thank Podcast Network Asia.
Woo!
Grabe.
Yeah, for season 2, we're happy to announce that we're now part of the Podcast Network Asia family. We're recording live here from We Remote co-working space. So, kumusta naman yung setup natin,
Ayun,
Jordan?
yun nga, mas maganda yung ambience, mas okay yung setup, nerfed up na, pati yung backend support, dyan na lahat. So, i-follow po natin at i-like and share yung Facebook and Twitter page nila. That's podcastnetwork.asia.
Okay, so like our old episodes, we have a guest tonight.
Oo.
Very timely ang kanyang pagpayag sa ating invitation dahil upcoming na in a few... Actually, nag-start na yung ibang events,
nag-start
diba?
na ibang events, yes.
Those, syempre, alam nyo naman, the Philippines is hosting the 30th Southeast Asian Games.
Yun. After 14 years.
So, after 14 years, magbabalik dito ang Southeast Asian Games. Daming events na ito, spread throughout many venues.
From Metro Manila to
Clark,
to
Pampanga,
sa Pampanga at sa mga norte. Ang dami niyan. So, without further ado, introduce po natin ang ating guest. Of course, Philstar columnist po natin, si Mr. Bill Velasco.
Alright. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be back.
Yun sa mga unang nakikinig sa podcast namin, I think Sir Bill was a guest, di ba?
Oo, naging guest natin
sa episodes.
So one of our old episodes.
Yeah.
So it's very timely na ibalik siya dito to discuss, of course, our SEA Games.
Yun. So, Sir Bill, kumusta naman? How is our setup?
Oh, God. Where do we start? Well, there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be fixed. No? Unang-una, if you look around Metro Manila and even the venues themselves, there's nothing addressing the SEA Games. There's nothing announcing the SEA Games. There's nothing saying that we have a SEA Games.
Mga billboards or mga ganun.
No billboards, no Roman banners. I mean, first of all, it's almost Christmas. And secondly, we have the SEA Games. So, hindi man lang napagsama yung espiritu ng dalawa na pagandahin yung labas, no? All the main thoroughfares. I mean, I would put Roman banners on all the posts along EDSA and all the main national roads saying we are celebrating the 30th Southeast Asian Games in the Philippines.
But I think on TV naman, sir, may mga ads naman, diba?
But that's because of the host of the broadcasters.
Okay.
That's them. That's not Fisgok. No, so it sort of makes you wonder, why are they trying to keep it quiet?
Sir, kung napapansin natin sa Facebook, Twitter, lahat ng social media, puro negative yung mga feedback about sa SEA Games. Or nagsimula yun yung sa 50 million na kaldero na sinasabi
sorry
nila.
about that.
And yun, marami pang ibang mga reklamo from our athletes. Pati na rin yung mga international athletes natin. Ano ba yung mga initial thoughts natin about dun, sir?
Well, when I first wrote about the 55.9 million peso cauldron, that was primarily to point out that it is not something that we needed to spend that much money on. Unang-una, it's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Clark is not a high traffic area. Secondly, the opening ceremonies will be primarily in Philippine Arena. So it won't even be really seen. And third, it's only going to be lit for about 2 weeks. And it will rarely be used again. So why are we spending that much money? I understand it's commissioned, but aren't they supposed to go through a procurement and bidding process since we are spending government money on it? So that was my primary concern in writing about that. So what are these other things that we are spending a lot unnecessarily on? No? But let me first clarify. Fisgok is a private entity using government money. Now, by default and by law, the Philippine Sports Commission has to help. Anything involving national sports, the Philippine Sports Commission has to help at the amateur level. So the money goes through Philippine Sports Commission. But they're not the ones spending it. They're not the ones procuring equipment, services, and all of that. The PSC has a separate budget for which they've renovated a lot of the other facilities already, and you can see. But this was not for the SEA Games. This was really part of a plan. In fact,
to rehabilitate the sporting venues.
Yes, in fact, the Field Sports Complex has already started. They're going to put up a 30-story dorm for the athletes. They're going to fix the swimming pool, which I understand is a couple of inches too short for international standards. And all of those other things. No, it's a really big plan. I've seen the plan alone. It's already an inch thick. So this was not for the SEA Games. So if you're going to complain that PSC didn't do its part, they've already done their part. And they've spent over ₱1 billion already on foreign exposures for all the national athletes this year. And another 300 million for training for medical personnel, coaches, therapists, trainers, etc. But this is, again, part of their regular job. And this is actually the build-up to the Tokyo Olympics. Kumbaga,
long-term reserve.
Yeah, and that's the real goal. No, get them qualified for all their individual sports world championships and the Tokyo Olympics. And the Southeast Asian Games is just happens to be along the way. Okay, so let's separate the issue, because some of the people being criticized in FISGOC are trying to blame the PSC. The PSC has nothing to do with it. In fact, Chairman Ramirez refused to sign on the board of the FISGOC Foundation Incorporated because there's no need for it. Okay?
So, sir, kanina na-mention ni Jordan, di ba? The last hosting was in 2005.
Yes.
Take us back to 2005, yung hosting natin nun. I remember we were still students sa Lasal nun eh. Pero I think yung host nun was different eh. Tama
Grade 5 pa ata ako nun.
Grade 5.
Nakakasakit naman kayo ng damdamin. Okay,
Take us back to 2005.
Okay, 2005, one of the reasons why we were very successful was, well, as the host country, you handled the scheduling of all the events. You can add events wherein you are very strong, like we normally do. You know, Arnis is only held in the SEA Games when they're in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And then you have other sports that will not be Olympic sports in the near future, like billiards, where, you know, if you can put 100 billiard events there, we'll win 99 out of 100. And that time, First Gentleman Mike Arroyo had all our athletes, over 300 of them, I believe, sent to China for 2 months. So there, you will naturally become stronger because you're training alongside the world record holder in your event. You're training alongside the Olympic gold medalist for 2 whole months. Plus, they were away from all the distractions.
So the concentration there, sir, was the preparation of the
Yes,
athletes.
yes. It always is, generally. You know? And you have to also remember, in 2005, there was no basketball.
Yeah, we were suspended.
We were suspended by FIBA because SBP and BAP were still clashing over it. So this will be the first time since 1991 that we are hosting a Southeast Asian Games basketball competition. So that's one of the keys to the success, that our athletes were really prepared that time. And they made sure that they appointed Mike Keon, the former head of Project Gintong Alay, the precursor of the Philippine Sports Commission. They appointed him to head the training of the athletes, to make sure that the money would go straight to the athletes. So there was no hanky-panky going on at that time. And despite that, we only spent 300 million pesos. You know, there was another 200 million spent by DPWH, but that was roads and all the thoroughfares. And we spent 300 million, and COA even said, yung 27 million dyan, ibalik nyo. So that means technically we spent about 273 million pesos.
Okay.
So that's why the question is, why are we spending 20 times that amount now? Right?
Saka traffic then there, sir, was different eh.
Well, meron na rin. But, as a side note, since 2013, from what I've gathered, 300,000 new cars have been added to Metro Manila every year. So since 2013, that's already 1.8 million more cars.
Siyempre, yung malaking bagay din sa mga pagpunta sa venue, yung traffic, no? So, at the same token, yung mga ibang venue na notable na paggaganapan nitong mga event, nagkaroon nata ng mga delay sa pag-construction, ganun. Could you tell us more about that, Sir Bill?
Well, on the PSC side, they've finished, there are 4 or 5 venues that they've finished already, which were not really meant for the SEA Games, pero natapos nila para sa SEA Games. Then the main sports complex in Clark was finished as scheduled. What we're hearing now is some of the practice facilities are not ready, and some of the construction suppliers are not being paid, hence they've stopped working. So these are the major concerns, and that's the embarrassing part because the budget is there. It took a while to get the budget out, but the budget is already there. So that's the question, why these things have not been finished in time. And last minute, they're looking for alternative venues.
I remember yung isang prominent, yung squash courts, di ba? Nagka-problem din sa construction ng squash courts. They had to parang relocate the event.
And, squash courts are not that difficult to construct because it's a small indoor space, really. So you have to wonder what's going on there. I think also we have to look back at the history of this particular SEA Games. The Philippines was originally slated to host in 2025.
Okay.
Then for the 2019 SEA Games, Brunei backed out. And in his infinite wisdom, the former POC president, Piping Cojuangco, wanted to have the SEA Games in 2019. Okay. One, there was no need for us to want to host it in 2019. Two, there was a re-election. If you understand, and if you remember, there was a recall election. Which set us back another how many months? Which is why I suggested that they hold it closer to Christmas instead of the usual international summer. And here we are.
Well, speaking of venues, no, one venue that caught the attention was the bowling events.
Oo.
sa
Diyan lang, di ba? Sa
Star
Star
Mall, di ba? I mean, I think the reasoning behind it was the required number of lanes. Yung bowlingan lang sa Star Mall yung nag-qualify to that standard.
Yung maraming lanes enough para ma-sustain yung event.
So ganun ba talaga, sir, yung naging reasoning why bowling was will be staged?
My question is this: why didn't FISGOC know this?
Okay.
Why was there no communication between the National Sports Association, which is Philippine Bowling Federation, and FISGOC? So they can't point fingers at each other because in any SEA Games, Asian Games, or Olympics, it's the local federation that handles the tournament. No, you just get, in the events that need referees and officials, you get neutral officials. But all the technical workings are handled by the national federation of that sport. So that's the question there.
At the same time, may aberya din regarding sa mga volunteers. Ika nga, yung mga, some of our friends actually, Jonas, may mga nagvo-volunteer din as a liaison officer for certain international delegates and all. So, yun, one thing that caught my attention din sa sa volunteers issue is yung parang nakasulat doon benefits on why I should be a volunteer for SEA Games. Yung isang first bullet doon, it looks good on your resume daw.
Okay, sir, what's the yung parang principle about yung being a SEA Games volunteer?
Okay. This, generally, there's, when you host an event of this magnitude, you don't have employees.
Of course.
You don't have full-time people to do this job. So you solicit volunteers. And they're generally given an allowance, uniform, food, and access to the events, but they're not there to watch the events, right? In 1984, in preparation for the LA Olympics, Peter Ueberroth had a volunteer workforce of over 40,000. No, and they have to be trained. Okay, when you hire a volunteer, he doesn't necessarily have to know that sport. Okay, and this is the funny part because once I start talking about this, medyo marami tayong mapupuntahan. Okay, when you have a final list of events, okay, sports and events for a particular multi-sport event like this, the Southeast Asian Games, you need to know which country is participating in which event, in which sport, how many, what languages they speak, what food restrictions they have, where they need to stay, and all of that. So you have to have liaison officers who fit those concerns, okay? If they don't speak English, what language do they speak? So you need to get somebody who speaks Bahasa or speaks Mandarin or speaks Thai, okay? Secondly, what are the dietary restrictions, okay? Some of the Muslim athletes have been complaining that there may not be halal food for them, so they'll just bring their own cooks. Okay, where are they staying? How do they get from one venue to another? Okay, these are all of the things that you have to have somebody on point for each group, not just each country or each sport, but each group. Okay, if let's say you are taking care of the men's volleyball team of this country.
Yeah, naka-assign ka to.
Oh yes, you're make sure they all leave at the right time, get there at the right time, have their dressing rooms, their food, their water, everything they need. You make sure they get back safely to their hotel. If they do anything beyond that, that's beyond your control already. So you know the qualifications in advance. You already know what they need. So why is this a problem? There are 105, 110 million Filipinos. You mean we can't find anybody who's educated or qualified enough to take care of these people? We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. You're talking about 10 countries. You're talking about a couple of thousand athletes, a few thousand athletes. So why don't we have enough? That's my question. So that means they did not attend to this ahead of time. They did not prepare ahead of time. And to be honest, I was actually approached about 6 months ago, and it was mentioned to me that I would be training the volunteers.
Okay.
And it never happened. No, so it shifted hands from Wesley Gonzalez to Chris Chu, and then there are other people assigned to handle the volunteers, and apparently they weren't trained. I got a very long private message from a volunteer in Pampanga.
Okay.
Who's saying that, initially they hired all the right people, they got all the good people. Then by October, they started forcing these people out or firing them and replacing them with more incompetent people who will go along with certain plans that may not necessarily be proper. So
What?
I mentioned this in my column in the Philippine Star this Monday. So these are the concerns that we have to look, and that's way over in Pampanga. Who's keeping an eye on them there?
Yeah.
Here in Metro Manila, we can more or less keep an eye somewhat on some of the venues and what's going on. But out there in the provinces, who's doing that?
I think I read a post on Facebook about a certain volunteer. She was raising issues about first the allowances, number 2 the meals, and number 3 is insurance.
That's true. Okay, my next concern is you mentioned the meals. 183 million pesos for catering. Now, the volunteers are spread out all over these venues. The mess halls are centralized. So a lot of these volunteers will not have access to the food.
Yes.
So first of all, why didn't you just get all the Filipino multinationals in the food industry to sponsor? You have
To deliver prepared meals.
Jollibee Foods Corporation has how many brands under their name? You can have a different viand every day.
Yeah.
Or give them gift certificates or a meal allowance. It's much more efficient. They have their own time. They have their own schedules. They can eat when it's convenient for them. And what happens if, let's say, the only time you can go to the mess hall is when it's lunchtime and everybody else is eating, and you only have an hour and you have to line up, and maybe the food you want or can eat is not available. It's really hugely impractical. So that's like us, when we cover these events, we're just given meal allowances because our schedules are all different. You can't tell me when I can eat or when I can't eat. What if I'm recording until late at night and the mess hall is closed, or they're preparing for the next meal? That's a real major concern. And for a lot of these volunteers, being fed well is one of the things they look forward to, aside from being able to wear the uniform. So that's one of the other issues that I wanted to point out.
At the same time, speaking of the uniforms, naging issue din sa social media yung presyo ng mga jacket, ng mga t-shirt,
Yung pants.
yung pants parang 6,000 per shirt or something.
Again, bidding and procurement process. They are a private group, but they're using government money. The sad part is this is the same group that's going to be handling the ASEAN Para Games in January.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to look at the numbers that they will be spending there too. Yun ang nakakatakot dun. And I've been to so many SEA Games where the gymnasts, who are the tiniest athletes, are wearing large and extra large tracksuits because some officials took their tracksuits because it fit them. You know, I mean, we know who's competing and we know who's going as an official. Why not have it in their proper size? You know, it looks ridiculous.
Naging baggy.
Oh.
Baggy
Parang hand-me-down ang naging itsura. You know? So, again, these are issues that the government is going to have to look at because this is government money. This is our money.
At yun, dun pa lang, sa first part pa lang, Jonas, medyo malaman na talaga ang kwento dito ni Sir Bill.
First part pa lang pala.
First part pa lang yun. And of course, we'll have a short break for the meantime. And mamaya we'll have ang paboritong portion natin, Jonas. Ang shoutout portion. And at the same time, pag-uusapan pa natin lalo ang SEA Games.
At ang ating bagong bahay. Ang ating bagong home.
Yes, tama ka dyan, Jonas. And once again, this is the Ultimate Fan Hub Podcast. Magbabalik po tayo. Magbabalik po tayo dito sa The Ultimate Fan Hub Podcast Season 2, Episode 1. Nakalimutan natin banggitin yung kung pang ilang season tsaka natin. Oo. Pero syempre, bago tayo mag-start ang ating second part for our SEA Games episode with Sir Bill Velasco.
Yeah.
Syempre, yung paborito natin, Jonas, ang batian, aka shoutout portion.
Yes.
So, ikaw na mauna, idol.
Ako na mauna. Of course, I want to greet my family. I want to greet my wife who's here. My wife, Claire, and our 2 kids at home. I want to greet my engineers at DCCD Engineering Corporation, my friends from Kings of the Court, and from Sneaker Hunt PH, kalaro ng basketball Sneaker Hunt, and our fellow writers from Fox Sports Asia, from Fox Sports Philippines pala.
Sali mo na rin yung Asia, mga bossing.
Oo, yun. Then, syempre, yung aming bagong home, itong Podcast Network Asia, we're recording live from the We Remote co-working space here in Rockwell.
Sa Metro Walk.
Sa Metro. Ay, sorry. Rockwell sa kabila.
Napalayo tayo.
Okay. Sa Metro Walk pala. Yan.
Oo.
So, na-mention ni Jordan sa first part, better setup, and we hope to give you better content. Better content. And syempre, nagiging trademark na natin, shout out to every Filipino sports fan who support a certain sport, certain athlete. This show,
para sa inyo
episode
to, diba?
1 is still for you.
Yes.
How about you, Jordan?
Well, the usual. Syempre, nabanggit mo na yung sa mga fans natin. At mga patuloy na sumusuporta. Once again, thank you. And yun, God bless you. And yun, malaking bagay po na suportan ninyo dito sa ating podcast. And babatiin ko na rin ang ating co-host na si Sicha. Pagaling po kayo, Ate Sicha. And yun, yung mic natin nag-improve na. Dati
Sa kami pinapabati siya, isa lang.
Oo nga.
Oo.
Siyempre yung Letran Knights, yung alma mater niya na nag-champion recently sa NCAA.
Yun. So, congrats sa Letran. Arriba Letran. Congrats, Sicha.
Yes.
Coach Bonnie.
Coach Bonnie Tan.
Yan.
Yung buong coaching staff niya. Yung super friends, ika nga.
Okay. Sino ba?
Siyempre, yung family ko rin, mom and dad, yung sisters ko, pati na rin yung girlfriend ko na si Bianca, of course. And yun, sa mga fellow writers natin, sa mga sports media men, and sa lahat ng mga fans all over the country. And of course, si Sir Bill Velasco for guesting us today. Sir, baka gusto kong batiin, sir.
Wala na.
Okay.
Bati na namin.
Mahirap na.
Okay, so we proceed with the second half of our season 2, episode 1 with Sir Bill Velasco.
Yes.
So kanina natackle natin yung mga issues about the 30th Southeast
More on sa logistics yung napag-usapan natin
one of the big news, sir, over the weekend, nagdadatingan na yung foreign delegates, diba? Specifically yung mga football teams from other countries. So, Timor-Leste, diba? Cambodia, Thailand. Unfortunately, sir, ito na, pumapasok na yung mga complaints from those teams. So, feeling nyo ba, warranted ba talaga yun? Was it expected or what?
Well, these are things that could have been avoided. No, it's a simple matter of coordination. You know, yes, when they are arriving, what time they are arriving, and I understand that Century Park Hotel also issued a statement. You know, that there was some miscommunication, and the rooms were supposed to be ready after lunch. Because standard checkout, standard checkout, check-in is after lunch and all of that. Yeah. So they did what they could, but again, it's a simple matter of coordination. So why did they not know this in advance? I mean, these people are coming here. Football starts before the actual opening. So again, it's without really having to point fingers, but we know who's responsible. Bakit nangyayari yung ganito sa atin? Bakit kailangan mangyari? Because these athletes, when they come here, they're our guests and we treat them shabbily. We're not prepared for them. They don't know the top officials of FISGOC. They know the people who are dealing with them face to face.
Yung point person.
Yeah, the point person suddenly becomes the idiot or the one who's incompetent, and it reflects poorly on everybody. So why was this? It could have been avoided. I've been to the Olympic Games. These things rarely happen. They have some issues, let's say, with transportation because all the drivers are volunteers. And if you're a school bus driver and you're suddenly driving a tourist bus, which is much longer, you occasionally get into an accident. But this is a simple matter of using Philippine hospitality at its best. There's not even any sign in the airport or greeter or whatever. It blows my mind because I've been doing events since the 90s and this has never happened to me.
At the same time, yung mga ganitong reaction kaliwat kanan, yung mga netizens nag-iingay na eh. So, there's this divide na, puro kayo puna ng puna, ganyan. Yung kabila naman yung nagpupuna, yung kabila, antay naman dun sa nagpupuna. So, may mga balik-taktakan back and forth na.
Well, they're trying to make it a political issue. Okay? Let's start with, Senator Frank Drilon. Okay? They're making it about him being with the LP or being against the Duterte administration.
Yeah.
That is just clouding the issue. That's not the point. Is he right or not?
Yes.
Okay? He asked Chairman Ramirez of the PSC point blank, who's responsible for this, who paid for this, could we have saved money here and there? These are the issues. It's not a question of personality. It's a question of the issues. Should we have spent 6 billion? One NSA official told me we could have done it with 2 billion. Very easily, he said. Okay, so let's not cloud the issue. Let's not, for example, FISGOC's trying to blame the PSC. The PSC is there because it is their duty to be there. Okay, and if you see the breakdown of the budget for the SEA Games, which I have a copy of, you'll see that there are items there that Department of Budget and Management disbursed, that PSC and the Philippine Olympic Committee are in charge of, and the bulk of it is under FISGOC.
Okay.
So let's not cloud the issue. Let's not make it about personalities. It's a question of, has FISGOC really done its job? And so far, the answer is not really.
And at the same time, sir, may issue din regarding sa sports media na nagko-cover sa event. I mean, yung rather minimalist setup ng isang press room, ganyan. At saka yung mga IDs, mga wrong spelling daw ng pangalan, ganun.
Okay. Accreditation is a very simple process. Okay, 6 months to a year before, or in the case of the Olympics, 2 to 2.5 years before, you announce that accreditation is open. So all the media entities who want to cover,
you invite. Basically.
No, basically you're saying we will accept.
Okay.
So because there is a vetting process, your editor, publisher, producer, in other words, your boss, the head of your department or your media organization, has to write a letter saying that you work for them. Like, for example, I would get my my sports editor at Philippine Star, acting editor now, Nelson Beltran, to say that I am a columnist for Philippine Star and I also contribute stories. And then you just verify it. That's it. Now, we could, my gosh, they set up photo booths at weddings and they can print IDs in corporate offices. You can't walk into San Miguel Corporation until they take your picture and print a temporary ID of you right then and there. So why is this a problem? Why are we using handwritten day passes?
Yeah, what's with the day passes, sir? How does it
basically,
work?
it means you have to get another one every day.
At World Trade Center.
Oh.
But what if your events in
Sa Clark?
That's another thing.
Okay.
In a lot of multi-sport events, there are media centers at every main venue, at every big venue. So there should be one in Clark, there should be one in Rizal Memorial, there should be one wherever. So you don't have to all converge on one place. It's basically, and you're all networked anyway. unless their IT people didn't do their job right. So it shouldn't be a problem. I don't understand unless you don't have the information in the first place or unless nobody checked. And that seems to be an issue now. Nobody checks. Do we have the list of names from the media of Thailand or the Cambodia or whatever? That's the problem. How many media organizations can there be? It's not as if we're accepting bloggers and vloggers and everybody who walks in, right? I mean, I'm not covering the SEA Games, so I don't need accreditation. I can be a guest of any sports association, but I'm not slowing down the process by using my name to crowd the system. So why is it an issue?
Okay. So I think the issue right now, sir, is another issue that's clouding yung sa media is yung delay in the distribution of the IDs. And yun
Yes.
na-mention ni Jordan, mga misspelled names,
Yeah.
wrong pictures. So,
Yeah.
avoidable sana siya.
Yes, definitely. I mean, with this administration, you can get your new passport in an hour. And that's a passport. That's an official government document. This is just a temporary identification that gives you access or limited access to certain events. And there are different levels of access. There's access only to your event and to your media center. There's all access. For example, I'm a commentator. I cannot tell which events I'll be covering. So I have an all access pass. See, so even that, it's segmented. So hindi mo masasabing kasi ang laki ng listahan. Hindi, hati-hati yan eh. We have a separate list for the print media, the broadcast media, the electronic media, and so on and so forth. So you have sponsors, you have partners, officials, coaches. Everybody has accreditation, or you can't get into the venue. So I don't understand why it was not properly segregated and prepared. You should be able to get it the moment you walk in.
Yung sir, na-mention niyo, sir, the broadcast media. So far sa coverage on TV or internet, so far, kumusta naman, sir, yung preparations?
Well, we'll only know that really when the games start.
Okay.
No? When everything's going on full blast, because that's when the broadcast center and the media center become fully operational. And I really hope they work the kinks out, because as a media person, you only really need three things. You only need access, which is your ID or your accreditation, transportation, and Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not like the old days where they still have to go back to the media center and type everything up on typewriters. Now they're doing it at the venue.
Yeah.
They can finish their story and there's no more crowding afterwards. So, again, it's a simple matter of coordination. And if you have any kind of experience, this shouldn't be happening.
Well, sir, now that the games have already started, yung karamihan ng mga...
Yesterday, polo.
Oo, nagsimula na yung polo. and
Talo daw
everything.
tayo.
Yeah, against Brunei.
Brunei, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's understandable.
So, sir, how about yung outlook natin sa mga certain sports? Like, syempre yung mga normal Pinoy fans tatanungin nila, saan tayo sure ball? Saan tayo mananalo ng gold or bronze dito?
So, let's start dun sa sport na hindi natin gusto.
Oo.
Yung basketball.
Oo, yung basketball. Ano ba yun, di ba?
Outlook, sir, sa men's basketball.
Well, men's basketball, of course, we're always going to be very strong. Okay. Initially, people were thinking it's overkill, but not now that you look at Indonesia. They have a very strong team. They have a naturalized.
We know a guy.
Close daw kayo dun eh. So, kanina kayo pupusta.
So, yun, Lester Prosper.
And they have 4 USNCAA Division 1 players. So, I guess it's gonna boil down to who has the stronger bench. And these guys are younger than our players. So, I'm not that concerned. I mean, I've known Tim Cone for a very long time, and if somebody can find a solution to it, he can.
And they're under Coach Raiko.
Oo.
Right?
Coach Raiko
but,
pa
I don't want to diss Coach Raiko, but when he was coaching the Philippine national team, he didn't really listen to his assistants.
Oh, okay.
So if he's still like that, then he might have some problems.
Okay.
He may have known the Philippine system then, but I don't think he's coached against Tim Cone.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. It will be the first time again, like I said, it's since 1991 that we're hosting SEA Games basketball. I want our women's team to win. I think they deserve it. I think Coach Pat Aquino's done a tremendous job. I mean, the core of NU, my God, 96 wins. UCLA only has 88. 88, no? So,
Ay, okay, tama.
So, that's, for me, 2 medals for sure, but Which ones? We're not sure yet.
Yung sa 3x3, sir.
I think
That's a
They're
ve-
fielding an all-PBA team.
That's a very interesting thing because I actually organized the first NBA 3-on-3 in the Philippines back in 2011, and that was when the rules changed. No, that even after a made basket, ball is still in play, so you can't walk it out to inbound it. You know, you have to dribble it or pass it out. But the pace has really changed a lot. As we saw in the last 3x3 World Cup, Mongolia has made that their focus. They know they're never going to be a world power in full court basketball, but 3x3, they have enough talent for that. So they've been Asian champion, the runner-up this year. They've hosted so many tournaments. Wag lang sana magulat yung mga player natin because it's very intense, it's very fast-paced. And they're the usual techniques. Like if you're already at 23 points, why will you still go for a layup? You go outside and go for a two-pointer and finish the game, right? So it depends on how they're training for it. And we have not seen that. Who have they been training against? We haven't seen that either. Okay? But the good thing is, well, these are relatively young players and a lot of them are familiar with the street style of basketball. So, you know, it looks good, but you know, you never can tell. We can't tell the development of 3x3 in other Southeast Asian countries. You know.
Well, in case you missed it, ang ating SEA Games roster para sa basketball team ay sa men's basketball team primarily puro Ginebra core, no, Jonas?
And SM San Miguel.
San Miguel, yeah. So, at the same time, sa women's naman, of course, yung mga wards ni Coach Patrick Aquino, karamihan dyan sa mga NU. And for our 3x3, sino ba ulit yan? Si
Jason Perkins.
Jason Perkins moved out to Terrence Romeo, right?
No. Cut siya. Tama ba?
Yeah, it was. I don't
cut.
think he was.
He was
not
cut.
on the team.
Moto to Jason Perkins. Si ano? Basta all PBA ano sila.
Yeah, it's
all
more
CJ, no?
CJ Perez,
CJ
yun.
Perez, yun.
And at the same time, parang may time pa nga dati na yung chooks to go 3x3 like sila Joshua Monzon.
That's an interesting side note. Sir, kayo, what's your opinion? Shouldn't they tap yung
mga taga-chooks to go 3x3
players? Nothing against syempre yung PBA squad, no? Pero shouldn't they have taken yung mga
taken into consideration at least?
Sila Monzon.
Well, you only have 4 slots. So, you know, and that's the SBP's call.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, they rise and fall with the players that they have chosen. And, you know, that's the call that they made. Personally, I think the team is a little undersized for international play. A little bit. Because like Mongolia, all 4 of their players are 6'4" when they played here. So they more or less all have the same skills. Now this is the question. Because 3x3 does not necessarily need the traditional definition of point guard, rebounder.
Positionless basketball.
Yeah, exactly. So it's more free-flowing. Outside shooting and passing are a bigger factor. Substitution is faster. So generally there should be a uniform look, unlike 5-on-5. So let's see how it goes. I mean, again, we've been blind to how they've been training. So let's see.
And how about, sir, some mga other sports like, let's say, volleyball or let's say boxing or even football? I think football, if I'm not mistaken, yung pinaka-centerpiece ng ganitong SEA Games event.
Well, traditionally in multi-sport events, the centerpiece is normally athletics and swimming because it's about 60% already of all the old, back in the day, that's the old setup. Football depends on who's playing, depends on who gets injured. We've struggled against some Southeast Asian teams in the past, and I understand this is not the seniors team really that's playing.
Yes.
So for me, it's not that important that the team wins. What's important for me is that they do well. Mm-hmm. And this is gaining experience. I don't really have those expectations because the development program of the PFF in the last few years has really been very minimal. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say they're going to win the gold. I don't think so. It's going to be very difficult.
Ito sir, inaugural event E-Games.
Well, there's 6, right? There's 6 events if I'm not mistaken. Tekken is one of them. Mm-hmm. Of course, Mobile Legends. They had an initial problem, I believe, with the phones.
Yes.
Until they shifted brands. No, so I'm excited because Filipinos are among the best in the world. Now, if you're going to ask me if I think that it qualifies in the traditional definition of sport, no. But it's going to be an Olympic sport, and somebody's You win a gold medal, that's 2 million pesos incentive. So, go for it.
Oo,
Computer mo yan.
Mas maganda kung individual sport, kung Tekken, manalo ka, kaysa Mobile Legends because the incentives are different.
Okay.
The incentive for an individual athlete, he gets the whole amount. If it's a team, it's double the amount for an individual athlete, but it's divided among the team members.
Siguro pag sa Tekken, gamitin mo si Eddie, no? Tapos Circle X.
Yun lang, capoeira kick.
Circle X lang, panalo ka na, di ba?
Ito sir, I think this is a sport close to your heart. Yung chances natin sir sa billiards.
We'll mop the floor with them. That's you ask me. I mean, for the last 20 years, Efren Reyes has been telling me he's just been waiting for it to become an Olympic sport.
Okay.
And there was an effort a couple of years ago. The Americans wanted to join forces with the Philippines to tour and campaign to have it in the Olympics, but then we'd keep beating them, so they quit.
Okay.
So bowling, billiards, arnis will take the majority of the medals for sure.
Grabe, no?
Ikaw coach, ano pang mga events ang gusto mong i-pick yung brainy?
Wala, actually naisip ko talaga yung sa E-Games eh.
Seaball.
Yung Seaball national team.
Ano pa sir, yung mga surprise sports na parang magiging surprise yung performance natin?
Well, sepak takraw and Subic I think is going to be very interesting. That's you have to remember Karen Caballero is on the world board of her sport. No? There are a lot of athletics are going to do well. We have a couple of good sprinters. Swimming, I'm not really sure, but our swimmers always seem to do well, although limited in number sometimes. There's just so many. Volleyball, mahirapan tayo because of Thailand. Let me think. Ang dami. There are 530 events if I'm not mistaken.
Mga aqua sports pa nga eh.
Yeah, a lot of aquatic sports, windsurfing.
Hockey pa, di ba?
New Olympic members like floorball.
Okay.
These are sports that we're seeing for the first time. And they've been carried on by a very small core of athletes here in the country. So let's see how well they do. Ako, personally, if you ask me, 274 golds is kind of a stretch. We're already padded because we're adding events that are not held in other Southeast Asian countries. No, I remember when Indonesia hosted the SEA Games about 8-10 years ago. They introduced a martial art called Tarung Derajat, which nobody in the Philippines played. So automatically they would win all the gold medals. So let's see. I mean, let's take it one sport at a time, one day at a time. We'll be up there. I think we'll place in the top 3, top 4. But overall champion, I will be happy if it happens. Okay. But I have my doubts.
Who do you think, sir, would be yung parang breakout athlete or parang magiging the face of the SEA Games?
That's hard to predict because it's a combination of a lot of things.
Okay.
One, if your event has no other major competitor on that day, no, hindi ka malulunod. Pangalawa, it will probably be one of the younger people and they're definitely going to be good looking. Okay. So, which is also very subjective. And it's who gets promoted by the TV networks and the print media.
Yung exposure, sir. No?
I mean, Lydia De Vega just kept winning for so long. That's why she became the symbol of the Filipino athlete and everybody wanted to be like her. Lydia De Vega, Christine Jacob, Akiko Thompson, Bea Lucero. They were just natural darlings of the media. So this we will have to see. I think there'll also be a couple of foreign athletes that we may fall in love with also. If you remember Leila Barros of over a decade ago, all of a sudden
volleyball Grand Prix. Yeah.
All of a sudden, parang pag nagkaroon ng Miss Universe, may paborito kang candidate, di ba? So we'll see. I think we will gravitate towards a lot of the women's sports also because our women have been doing so well. I mean, I think Heidelin Diaz's main competition will come from Thailand, for example. Marami talagang pagkakataon tayo. It's just a question of how do we maximize our advantage. We already lost home court because some of the venues were not ready.
Jonas, kailan ba ulit tayo huling first overall sa SEA Games?
05.
05?
Yeah.
So, yun, sabi nga ni Sir Bill, medyo stretch this time yung hangarin na yun. So, again, para sa ating mga athletes, of course, we are behind you. So, suportahan namin kayo in every step of the way. And, of course, sir, siguro, parting words na lang, sir, for our athletes and para na rin sa mga organizers sa SEA Games.
Yeah, for the athletes, really, this is your show. Block everything out. Do what you're supposed to do. We know it's sometimes unfair to you that all these extra burdens are being passed on to you, but we are with you, and we will never tire of supporting you because you are us and we are you.
Yung niya, sir, message yun naman sa mga Filipino sports fans.
At the end of the day, this is about the aspirations of the Filipino athletes. They represent us. They are us. They inspire us to be greater than what we believe we are. So, let's back them up because this is the one time that we can be there for them. These are the warriors we send abroad all the time to train, to compete. They rarely have us in full force backing them up. So, who knows when this will happen again?
Yun, so sabi nga ni Sir Bill, di ba? Fellow sports fans, come out and and support our
and just enjoy the
athletes.
show.
Yeah. Bihira lang yung ganitong chance. Di ba, Coach?
Baka after, yun nga, sabi ko, grade 5 pa ako nun. Ngayon, graduate na ako nagtatrabaho na ako,
No
di ba?
offense, sir.
Baka sa susunod, may kids na ako or something, di ba?
The main difference, sir, noong 05, I remember, nung SEA Games nun, hindi kami nag-cancel ng class sa Lasal nun eh.
Wala pang traffic nun. But if you recall, I already my first SEA Games actually was I sent a crew to the 89 SEA Games. Nobody covered it. 91 was here in the Philippines. I was in charge of 4 sports: tennis, basketball, volleyball, and bowling.
Wow, okay.
And Akiko and Eric Buhain were the outstanding female and male athletes of the SEA Games. So these are the things that we look forward to, that we find somebody from athletics or swimming to be the outstanding athlete. Yun ang tinatanong nyo kanina. Naalala ko lang that they became the face
of those games. Okay. Whew.
Grabe.
What an episode.
Oh, what a way to kick off, of course,
Yun.
Season 2 dito sa Ultimate Fan Hub Podcast. At syempre, kanina may shoutout portion tayo. Ngayon naman, kasi magiging staple na to ng ating mga future
Yun.
episodes.
So we mentioned it a while ago na we're part now of the podcast network Asia Family. So the episodes are on Spotify and we hope that you follow the other shows, Kudazzers, The Cool Pals, The Halo Halo Show, Hustle Share, Eavesdrop, and the Wrestling Podcast.
Ayun, yung mga...
And syempre yung podcast namin. Okay.
Yun yung kagandahan dito sa Podcast Network
Yep.
Asia. Iba-ibang topics, iba-ibang genres, kumbaga, ng different podcasts. So, thank you, Sir Bill, once
Thank you,
again
sir.
My
for,
pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
for guesting
Salamat
in our podcast. So, once again, this is the Ultimate Fan Hub Podcast where it's made by the fans.
For the fans.
And sa ngalan ni Sicha Cabanlong, this is Jordan Samar.
And I'm Jonas Reyes.
And of course, ang ating guest is Sir Bill Velasco. And good night, everyone.
Good night.